but with the draft involved. So it's a lot of signs are pointing to they're not going to sign Aaron Jones. That just does not look like a feasible option at this point.
Mhm.
However, we have the draft. We have picks, which we're going to talk about. So they have 10 picks in total. We'll get to that later, but they have a lot in the later rounds. Do you think they should draft a running back, Nick, and when should they?
I do think we could take a running back. I don't think we should take a running back early. We took A.J. Dillon in the second
Yeah.
round last year after taking Jordan Love in the first. I don't think the Packers should even think about taking a running back in the first 3 rounds because there's other things that need to be
Yeah.
focused on first. But 4th round, 5th round, I could see the Packers taking a running back and just seeing how it plays out.
Okay, I'm with you on that. So if they don't sign Williams or Jones, I would probably say pick up a running back in the draft in the later rounds, and then probably a free agent too. They need to get two. They need to have two or draft or get two in free agency. Like I don't think you can just run in with AJ Dillon, Dexter Williams, and Tyler Irvin. I don't think
And
that's feasible.
you're counting Jamal Williams as free agency. So you think if we do get Jamal Williams, then one more guy and then also A.J. Dillon?
Yeah, if they
Okay.
sign Jamal Williams, I'm thinking probably I would say draft at that point,
Mhm.
mainly for cost reasons. Like I would just take a guy who's like either a scat back or like a receiving option that brings that explosive spark. But if they don't sign Williams, I'm saying they need to get a free agent and they also need to draft a guy, or they just draft two guys. I think they
Okay.
need 3 running backs and then Tyler Irvin is basically how I see it. I don't think Dexter Williams is gonna be a starter unless there's like tons of injuries. That's
Yeah,
the
if we don't get Jamal Williams, if the Packers decide not to sign him, I don't think we can only draft 2 running backs. I think we will have to go to free agency and definitely get
yeah,
some guy who has some experience because if we draft 2 guys that have A.J. Dillon as like the oldest guy, there's
yeah.
just going to be no one there to mentor them. A.J. Dillon still needs to be mentored. He showed a lot of promise at the end of the season, but he's not ready for that lead role yet.
I'm with you. And then free agents, we're gonna talk about those later. We have 2 guys in mind that could be cheap. And then here's another guy who I just thought of, mainly because the Niners thought, but Frank Gore. Do we get Frank Gore?
Frank Gore has become the lead back for the teams he has played for the last 3 or 4 seasons. And
Yeah.
as a Packers fan, I don't like the idea of Frank Gore being our lead back, especially if we're playing deep into the season where we need someone who not only gets us to the playoffs, but gets us to the Super Bowl and through the Super Bowl. And I don't know if Frank Gore could hold up for that entire season as well as the postseason.
So the thing with him though is he wouldn't have to be the lead back. In those teams that he did become the lead back for, they were like actually they had terrible running backs. We've seen what all right, AJ Dillon hasn't proven much, but when he has played, he's looked good, right?
Yes.
He was on the Colts, he was on the Bills, he was on the Jets. Those guys like they still don't really have great running backs until the Colts drafted Jonathan Taylor. The Bills drafted Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. I wouldn't be completely mad at Frank Gore, but I also just not. I don't know.
Frank Gore is not my first pick. I can say that with confidence.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon would be interesting. The only thing is injuries with him. Like he has potential. We saw him play on the Vikings. He was really good. Any running back in Shanahan's system's good, right? I mean, he's fast. That's all you really need to be good in Shanahan's system, I feel. What do you think about McKinnon?
McKinnon's an interesting one. He's had a lot of injuries in the past.
He has potential.
But he does have potential. I remember when he went to the 49ers, he got injured right before the season started. But then the next year he did show that he can still run the ball. The injuries didn't push him back too much. And McKinnon's an interesting one you bring up. I wouldn't be mad signing McKinnon.
Yeah, he would be really cheap too. So he got the bag when he went to the Niners. He got like $8 million a year. He was one of the highest paid backs.
He did.
So he would be interesting. And then another guy too, just another former Niner, Matt Breida. I'm pretty sure he's a free agent now. Really fast. When he had the opportunity on the Niners, he looked good. He did look good. But again, another guy that just isn't really big enough. His body's not built like that where he can just sustain hits, and he got injured a lot. Would you be interested in him or the thought of him at all?
I'm not too interested in Matt Breida. I don't think he can run between the tackles for an entire season, taking those hits game after game,
Yeah,
drive after drive. He's more of a guy you bring in for a couple plays, but he's not. I don't think he could be a workhorse for us.
yeah, I'm with you on that. Free agent signings. So we talked about these guys a little earlier or mentioned the running back situation. I think me and you both want to sign a veteran if we don't retain either Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams, and then we draft a guy and pick up one of these two. Here's two names that I would be really happy with. So we could start with James White. So what are your thoughts on him, Nick?
All right. So James White, I like him a lot. He's cheap too. I think we could get him for $3 million a year. Give
Yeah,
him a couple of years. And even if we get Jamal Williams, I'd still be fine with bringing James White in because he's a running back. He's not going to run 30 carries. He's going to catch the ball. And he's someone who we get, all right, we give A.J. Dillon a carry up the middle, and then we bring James White in, and we just give him a little screen route. James White is a running back who makes plays after he's given the ball. He is not told where to run. He has great vision. So James White, he can break tackles. He can. And I like him for his receiving aspect.
yeah. So we all saw what him and Tom Brady did in the Super Bowl against the Falcons. And a lot of it was just dump offs to James White and watch him make a play. He's a tough guard for pretty much most linebackers, I'd say. You could throw him in the slot, and he would fill that Aaron Jones role of when we would, feed him the ball on the passing game. I think it was against the Chiefs and the Cowboys where he had two plays where he had huge just receiving options, and basically he was in the backfield. They split him out wide and then had him run a route on a slower linebacker, and he dusted him. I think James White could fill a certain role, especially if he was like our third guy, of being the pass catcher. I would love this. He's like 29, I believe. He shouldn't be that expensive considering how replaceable running backs are, but he definitely fills a need of just receiving out of the backfield. And we haven't had that. I mean, Aaron Jones was a pretty good receiver, but he wasn't like a specialist. James White is a specialist. He could play the slot, play out of the backfield. I would love him as our second or third running back and just a guy that comes in on passing downs to, catch.
All right. So let's talk about Marlon Mack now.
Mm-hmm.
Marlon Mack a few years ago for the Colts, he was a very good running back. He really was. A lot of people liked him. They knew who he was, and Marlon Mack was a good running back. And then he kind of disappeared for a little bit, and nobody really knows what happened. So
Yeah.
I think he can be a very good running back again. I think I can see Marlon Mack being our lead back. And if he's not, okay, it's only 2, maybe $3 million a year. And we'll have another guy who can be. But I could bring in Marlon Mack and I could see him being the lead back for the Packers.
Yeah, so I really like this guy. He had a 1,000-yard season with the Colts. They drafted Jonathan Taylor. He tore his ACL, I think, before the season or during the season, early weeks. But he's a good runner. I think as a second, I mean, he could even be the guy that goes out there on first downs or second, but he's a good runner, good hard runner. And these contracts are just our guesses, mainly because of COVID and how replaceable running back is. I think that drives down their prices a little bit.
And the salary cap going down.
Yeah, exactly. Like the cap going down will help that. But yeah, I mean, behind a good line, Marlon Mack he's very serviceable, probably more than serviceable. I would be happy with either of those dudes if we sign, or if we draft a guy, or if we retain Jamal Williams. Preferably if we draft a guy, but if they're cheap and they want to come and they want to play with Rodgers and help us out, I would be totally A-okay with that. They're both pretty solid.